London. Are you feeling hot right now? Are you feeling hot right now? That's not bad considering how late some of you were out last night. Welcome back. Welcome back to the second day of our first State of OpenCon, and thank you for getting up early. But of course, you've got a very good, if not fantastic, reason to be up early. So before I introduce you to our Day 2 keynote, I'm going to just share a few things about the conference with you. So I'm not always very good at reading things, but a lot of people told me they had a fabulous time yesterday. So I think everybody's having a good time. Okay, good. I'm glad. And I want to welcome you all back, and I want to welcome you on behalf of Open UK and on behalf of our headline sponsor, IEEE. I also want to welcome everybody who's joining us online. And for those of you who haven't been able to see what you want to see, and we can all only watch one thing at a time, really, even those of us who multitask, we can all only watch one thing at a time. We will have 65 hours of content that will be edited and available for unlimited free download in about 2 weeks' time. So if you watch on social, we will put a message out on Cvent, the app that you've registered through. We'll put it on our website. It will be on both the Open UK and State of OpenCon website, and I hope that you will have an opportunity to watch it. And I think the biggest, everybody's loved everything apparently, but the biggest thing that people have given me feedback on is the content. And I've been getting messages from people all over the world saying how good the content looks. And something I talked to you about yesterday is that this conference isn't about one person, it's not about a small group of people, it's about several hundred people. And we have 130 plus world-class speakers, and we have more of them today than we had yesterday. And that's why we haven't got plenaries for you, we've got you going straight into it. We do have one keynote, and we have one keynote that is taking us in a different direction from yesterday, but I'll get to that in a moment. I can't summarize the content from yesterday. I mean, I was absolutely blown away by the people we had on stage. Mike Bracken, Camille from the White House, Salim from the UN. For me, that was just an incredible experience, and I hope it was as incredible for all of you as me. All of the conversation yesterday. I mean, Eric Brewer, if any of you came up to the room afterwards at 1:30, Eric and Sarah Novotny had the most amazing conversation. I think actually that's probably one of the best conversations I've ever heard in open source. So there's definitely stuff really worth watching. The entrepreneurship room next door. You don't have to be thinking about founding a business to find that useful. The conversation, the advice, the support that people were getting in that room yesterday, just incredible. Matt Barker, our entrepreneur in residence, also runs mentoring through Open UK, if anybody's interested in that. And one of the things we talked about in there yesterday was how important mentoring is to your career. But people really need to understand how open technology is different, how running businesses, generating revenue, even if it's just paying for your own excellence so that your project continues. We need money to make these projects work, to make our industry work. We also need to eat. There are a few sort of housekeeping things that I want to go through with you. You'll see these flyers on the information desks. And yesterday we had our first 2 book signings. In fact, we had 3 yesterday, we've got 2 today. For My Sins, I edited a book, and some of the authors are in this room with 26 authors and 24 chapters, open source law, policy and practice. It's available as a free download for non-commercial purposes, but we also have, I think, 50 copies to give away between 12 and 1 today. And then we have a book on Rust being given away in the 3 o'clock break. Now, the 3 o'clock break is going to have a small, just a tiny little special thing happening at 3:30 on the 3rd floor. So if you are not very busy in the DX spaces, if you don't happen to be with Boeing in space or with the BBC enjoying an interactive experience on one, and you have 5 minutes to come and join us at 3:30, please do. I've mentioned the speakers. You've got the DX experiences. You've still got 58 tables of people on 1, 3, and 4 to go and chat to find out about what they do, to find out about how to get involved in their projects. We will wrap today at 5:30. We will again serve a simple lunch, but I would encourage you to go and enjoy the lawns out front. The tents on the lawns out front. They're really fabulous, and it's the perfect place to go and sit down and chat to people over a bite to eat or a coffee. So have I done all the... yes, I was talking about people. So there are about 500 people who've made this happen. Our advisory board, some of whom have come from all over the world to be part of this, our 130 plus speakers, the Open UK team, my team, there's about 6 of us who've organised this event. I'd particularly like to call out Jim Davis and Jonathan Davis, who are not related, but who I don't think have been called out in the other thanks. And they've done all sorts of different things, but in particular, Jonathan Davis has made sure that the Wi-Fi has worked, which is obviously critical to all of us. And I'd like to thank, and really thank, our volunteers. So Sam Hepburn and Kim Fletcher have run a volunteering team for us. And they've completely taken that away from me. I would never have been able to manage the conference without that. And some of the volunteers are quite young, some of them are quite inexperienced, but they're learning, and they've given us their time over the 2 days. And personally, I'm profoundly grateful to them for doing that. And we talked yesterday about how community and people are at the heart of everything we do. And, you know, you see that with the photo exhibition. It's the heart of this event. And I would ask that everybody respect our volunteers, but also understand that we operate with a code of respect. You'll find them in open source everywhere you go. I know that people from other parts of open technology might not be so familiar with them. And you'll see our code of respect is printed out all over the building. And that's part of the requirement for us to have a Chaos Gold Medal for DEI, but it's also part of our ethos. So if you're not familiar with code of respect, you know, I respect all of you for being here, and I'm very, very grateful to you. And I want to see everybody respecting each other, particularly our volunteers. So I think that if anybody thinks I've missed any of the admin that I'm supposed to have covered, please wave at me now, because I'm going to move on. Right. So I hope you really enjoyed today, and particularly the content, because the focus today is a bit more on the content than the partying. The next speaker is somebody that I owe a huge amount to, and he probably doesn't realise how much. So very quickly after I became CEO of Open UK, Jimmy was supportive of me and Open UK. He has a massive social media following, as I'm sure you will all understand, and he pushed stuff out for us. He didn't need to do it, and when I first randomly contacted him, I didn't expect to get any response, to be honest. But he pushed stuff out for us. He's done lots of different bits and pieces and been super supportive. And when I went to him with the conference, 10 weeks before the conference with no content, he was the first person to lend his name to being a keynote or a plenary. And we hadn't intended to have any keynotes and plenaries today, which is why it's at 9 o'clock, this ungodly hour that we're all not used to anymore. But we've added it specially because we wanted to give this space for Jimmy to talk to you about what he does and about some of the things that are going on from a policy perspective. And we also want to make sure that we're not just focused on open source software. And sometimes for me, my book's about open source software. That's my discipline. I forget. So, you know, if I ever do, call me out, because we're about open technology, which is software, hardware, and data. So without any sort of further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Jimmy Wales. Jimmy is an internet and technology entrepreneur and the founder of the not-for-profit encyclopedia Wikipedia and co-founder of the private-owned Wikia. And you've probably all had an opportunity to speak to the Wikimedia stand outside. He is on the board of trustees of that, but obviously the instigator of it. He's someone who has been listed in Time magazine's 100 most influential people in the world for his role in creating Wikipedia, and I'm truly in awe. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask you to please welcome Jimmy Wales.
Good morning. Thank you. It's very good to be here. You know, as Amanda said, I've been a big supporter of Open UK, but also just a big supporter of open technologies for many, many years. And so today what I'm going to talk to you about is very broadly some of the good things that are going on, some of the things I'm excited about, but also some of the problems that I see on the horizon. So first, we'll do the happy stuff. So this is the original vision for Wikipedia, which is for all of us to imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. And that's what we're doing at Wikipedia, at the Wikimedia Foundation. This is really our singular driving inspiration, is this concept of free access to knowledge for everybody. And by this statement, we have very specific meanings for all of it. So when we talk about every single person on the planet, that means that Wikipedia is inherently global, inherently multilingual. We operate in as many languages as we can. I'll talk about that in a minute. When I talk about free access, for this crowd, I don't need to really explain the concept of free as in speech, not free as in beer. But the idea is that everything in Wikipedia is freely licensed. All of our software is freely licensed. We try to take the idea of openness to a real extremity there. And finally, to the sum of all human knowledge, which really defines what Wikipedia is. Wikipedia is an encyclopedia. It isn't sort of TikTok. It isn't YouTube. It isn't Twitter, thank God. It isn't a lot of things. It's a project to build an encyclopedia, and it's several related projects which in many ways support and feed into that ultimate goal. So all of this has been our vision from the very beginning, and we've always stuck to it in a very straightforward way, which I think has given us a lot of influence and a lot of power over the years because we're quite straightforward and we're quite easy to understand. So Wikipedia today, the popularity of Wikipedia, of course, everyone in this room has probably used the website at least once today. But just to give you some of the numbers, we're currently seeing around 274 billion page views a year, which is up 12-something% year over year. 306 million edits a year, which is up 51%. I was actually surprised to see that number. I got it right off the stats page. I slightly question it, but I'm not sure what time periods they were comparing. But anyway, sounds good to me. And if we talk about just English language alone, 115 billion page views, which is up, rounded up to 14%. And then for the UK alone, I estimated by doing some math, it's very dangerous, but I did. It's about 10 billion page views a year. So it's incredibly popular. The public is using it. It's something like the #5 website in the world. It's all there. It's all completely free. This is not part of my speech. I just have to tell you this funny thing. I've been playing with ChatGPT, which is really a lot of fun. And so I typed into it because my daughter was with me, and she's like, oh. I said, what's the difference between Jeff Bezos and Jimmy Wales? And it gave me a really kind of a boring, internet entrepreneurs, but this and that. It was really boring. I said, okay, do that again, but make it shorter and make it funnier. And it said, Jimmy Wales and Jeff Bezos are like a Wikipedia page and an Amazon page. One of them's free and the other's going to cost you. It's like, that's actually pretty funny. Okay, so anyway, Wikipedia is very popular and it's free. My clicking is not working. So the size of Wikipedia, and this is talking about the amount of the content. So we have 318 active Wikipedia languages. So these are the sites that are up and running. They've got a community, many of them quite small communities. But we also have over 100 more in what we call the incubator. So this is places where people go, they say, oh, we want to have a Wikipedia in such and such a language, but it's kind of a big deal to set up a new website separately. So we say, okay, look, if you can come and start building it and start attracting people, incubator, once we can see that there's a viable community, then you'll sort of graduate to have your full separate site, Wikipedia. Size, 6.6 million articles in English alone. But this is really important. It's about 1/10 of the total content. 60.5 million articles across all the active languages. So Wikipedia is huge all around the world, and most people in this room will, of course, be English speakers and using mainly the English Wikipedia. Probably you speak 2 or 3 other languages, some of you. If there are any Dutch people, you probably speak 5 languages. I find they're very good at languages. But in general, most of Wikipedia, most of us don't see. You don't see what's going on in all those languages that you don't speak. But there's huge communities all around the world working in Wikipedia. And of course, as we'll come on to, a lot of those communities are working in places and jurisdictions which definitely do not embrace the idea of an open society and open knowledge, and therefore we run into some difficulties. So important to know about Wikipedia is that we are a charity, the Wikimedia Foundation. I set up to own and operate Wikipedia, and that's what we do. We're relatively small. The entire Wikimedia Foundation has about 700 staff and contractors. Largely, the staff are working on software, product development, site operations, so keeping the site up and running. It's quite a big website, so you've got a lot of operations to keep it running. Finance, accounting, legal, fundraising, communications, trust and safety. So all of the sort of basic functions you would expect of a nonprofit. But here's the thing that you probably need to know, and that is part of what I'm going to talk about today when we come on to talking a little bit about the online safety bill here in the UK, is that the staff do not generally work on content, and they do not generally work on user moderation. There are a few exceptions on user moderation when it involves an emergency, somebody's actual health and safety. We do have trust and safety people who are dealing with that sort of thing. But your routine day-to-day user moderation is not at all handled by staff. It is all handled by the open community of the Wikipedians. So how user moderation usually works. If you go out and you look at pretty much every other non-wiki type of website, the way user moderation works is basically what I would call the feudal model. So what I mean by that is all the people are there, they're doing whatever they do, they're uploading videos, they're commenting on posts, they're posting, they're doing all the things that people do online, but they're doing it on the master's estate. It's a feudal model. As an end user, you don't actually have any control over really what's happening there. Content moderation is done top-down. Paid staff are constantly reviewing and making decisions on content. This is quite famously very, very difficult. And so you'll get endless debates about, was Twitter pre-Elon Musk biased towards the left? I wouldn't say so myself, but it was a question that people had, is like, are they blocking people disproportionately if they are right-wing versus left-wing? So that's a really difficult problem, a really difficult question, because many of the decisions they have to make are really judgment calls, and they're really hard judgment calls, and they're made in the typical model really in secret. They're made, you have no idea who the moderators are, it's all done somewhere behind the scenes, and you really don't know. And increasingly encouraged by legislation, it's being done in an automated fashion, using machine learning techniques to try and identify hostile content, which, by the way, does not work very well at all. But that's the direction that a lot of those sites are going. And we know this doesn't scale very well at all. If you've ever, so let's take Twitter as an example. So go on Twitter. This example worked a little bit better before Elon took over because, well, I'll still go through the example. So you go on Twitter and you see somebody doing something horrible. Define in your own mind what you mean by horrible, but they're violating the terms of use of the website. They're being mean to someone, they're racist, whatever it might be. So you basically have three choices, three things you can do. You can block the person, which helps you but doesn't help anybody else. You can report it to Twitter, which used to sometimes work, but I think now never works. I'm not sure they got rid of most of the staff, so I'm not sure what happens to the report. But in my own personal experience, it doesn't work at all. I am very tolerant. People may say mean things about me. Mostly they don't. I'm kind of the nice guy on the internet, but there's always a troll somewhere. And I very rarely would report something, but I have reported things before. When somebody's accusing me of a crime, I'm like, come on, like, that's just not okay. Report to Twitter. It doesn't work. They say, we don't see any problem here. I once emailed Jack Dorsey, and I'm like, Jack, come on, somebody's calling me a pedophile and accusing me of a very specific crime. How is that not against the terms of use of the website? And he said, oh, sorry, Jimmy, don't worry, we'll look into it, we'll take care of it. And I'm like, Jack, you're totally missing my point. Like, I'm Jimmy Wales, I can email Jack Dorsey because I know you socially. Most people's experience of Twitter is far worse. Like, they can't get any answer from anybody. It's really bad. So it doesn't scale well at all. And so when regulators have only this sort of feudal model in mind, they're likely to impose requirements which would be devastating for the only model that has proven to work, the wiki model. So to the extent that the Wikimedia Foundation suddenly becomes responsible for content, depending on how that's done, it could be really devastating. There's always like different gradations of proposals, some are worse than others. But it's important to remember that we are not like these other things. And our model is not like it. At Wikipedia, the community is in control. It's all transparent. People have huge debates and arguments about whether and what, and it actually works really well. If you go onto Wikipedia and you say the kind of stuff that's routine on Twitter, you will get blocked very, very quickly. The community does not put up with personal attacks and hate speech and all that. If you're just being a bit of a pain in the ass, okay, you could get blocked for that, but it takes longer and there's a big open debate, and some of those questions are really hard. But the ones that are the hard cases, that the big companies make the decisions behind the scenes and then people complain about it or they don't understand or they don't know what's happened, we do all those debates out in public. We sort of chew on things. Quite famously recently, there were the Twitter files. So when Elon took over Twitter, he released a bunch of internal documents. I didn't really look into it all that closely. Somebody quickly created an article in Wikipedia about it, and it was immediately nominated for deletion, and a deletion debate happened. And the real question was, these are all about Hunter Biden's laptop, as I understand it. The real question was not, should we suppress this information and not let the public read about the Twitter files in Wikipedia? The real question that was being debated actively is, actually, isn't this just part of the whole Hunter Biden story? And shouldn't this, it's a really geeky Wikipedia editorial question. Should it be here or here? Elon tweeted about it as if we were sort of crazy left-wingers who were trying to suppress information to support Joe Biden. That's crazy, it's wrong. And all you had to do was go and read the discussion, and you would see, no, actually what we were debating is, sort of internal editorial matters. No one in that debate was saying we shouldn't have this information. They were just saying, where should it be? And furthermore, it took just a few hours, and it was what we call a snowball close, which means somebody looked at one of the admins looked at all the community admins, by the way, not staff, looked at the debate and said, oh, look, this is obviously going to be a keep. Let's just not even debate it anymore. And they closed the debate. That's pretty normal. That's the routine operation of Wikipedia, which doesn't involve the company making decisions about potentially, let's say, legal but harmful content, a really perverse and strange expression that's come up a lot in the UK debates. It's really about people chewing on ideas and thinking about how do we best present the facts? How do we get to the truth? And, within that, there'll be different points of view and different arguments and different debates. Some people are better at it than others. Some people come in and they're not acting in good faith. They're making specious arguments and so forth. But that's all part of the noise. That's democracy. That's openness. So for us, the community monitors and polices the content. These administrators, the ones I mentioned who might close the debate or decide what the result of a debate is, they are elected by the community, and they have to follow very strict rules, and all their actions are transparent. Everything they do on the site, from blocking someone or deleting something or merging something or whatever it might be, that's all transparent, and they are held accountable by the community for that. You can lose your admin rights if you're not doing it the right way. It's kind of hard to lose your admin rights because we want people to be able to make unpopular decisions. But in general, there are these built-in checks and balances in the system, which aren't perfect, but it works pretty well. The larger disputes in larger communities are settled by a sort of Supreme Court. So this is elected by the community for fixed terms. This is called the Arbitration Committee, or ARBCOM for short. In the Arbitration Committee, it's very formalistic. They hear cases. People come and they post arguments on either side, and then they make a binding decision. This can vary depending on what the circumstances are. Often it's sort of asking or telling certain people, don't edit in this area. So a classic kind of example, some people are, I remember one guy a long, long time ago, he was great Wikipedian, fantastic, wrote a lot in biology, really great stuff about butterflies, I don't know what it was, very straightforward stuff. But this poor guy, he couldn't get anywhere near the Israel-Palestine debate without getting really angry and upset and yelling at people and not sort of being thoughtful and trying to be balanced in his views. And eventually the arbitration committee said, hey dude, please go back to biology, but you're banned from working in this area because you're just yelling at everybody and it's not helping. That's the kind of stuff that happens, and it's very nuanced and it's very human and it's really democratic and an open system. And again, it's not perfect, but it's something that you wouldn't imagine if you're a regulator whose only model in mind is, should Facebook be shutting down more COVID disinformation groups and things like that? So the Wikimedia Foundation only steps in when there's a problem, usually cross-wiki. So by cross-wiki, what I mean is we've had a few trolls over the years who go around with scripts and start attacking hundreds of languages of Wikipedia. And maybe each language Wikipedia would ban this person, but suddenly it's sort of everywhere, and it's like the small languages can't deal with it and so forth. So they'll come in and do what's called a global ban, and they'll say this person is banned across the entire site, and they'll sort of help the community implement the technical measures to make that happen. The other things, if there's a safety issue demanding urgent attention, and we don't need to go into the details there, but there are sometimes cases where a human life might be in danger, and the foundation has people on staff, trust and safety people, who would act in that case. So they don't intervene, if you and I are having a big debate about the name of a river in Poland, which is a classic sort of Wikipedia debate. The foundation will not decide what the name of the river in Poland is, right? It's something that's community matters, and if we're behaving ourselves, that debate can play itself out over hundreds of pages sometimes. But if we're not behaving, then maybe an admin will block one of us or block both of us, or various things can happen. The Wikimedia Foundation does not get involved at that level. So the state of open. So as I see it, looking all around the world, and we're dealing with situations and cases all the time. You may have just seen in the past week, first we were degraded for 48 hours, and then we were blocked in Pakistan. And then the Prime Minister came out and ordered that we be unblocked. And so it was the regulator had acted, and the Prime Minister wasn't happy about it, and so on and so forth. That sort of thing is going on all the time. The biggest threat is really misguided regulators with little or no genuine understanding of internet or content moderations in the real world. And this is the reason I think this is our biggest threat. It's coming from countries who generally ought to be leaders in openness, like, for example, the UK, where we have proposed regulations that don't make any sense for us, that frankly don't make any sense for anybody, but they are sort of just think of the children, driven, the classic fallacy of we must do something, this is something, therefore we must do this, which isn't actually logical, but there we are. And so what we try to do is to educate the politicians as best we can to say, look, actually this is not likely to work. We understand that you're mad at Facebook and Twitter. You think they're really bad at what they do. I happen to agree, but that's not really relevant. The point is, can we be thoughtful about internet regulation in a way that actually makes sense? In the US, the most important regulation is Section 230 of the Communication Decency Act, which basically makes it possible for platforms to do moderation without therefore becoming totally responsible for everything that everybody ever says on the site. This is a hugely important principle, which there's a lot of pressure in the US to modify it, but it turns out that pretty much everybody who wants to modify it either doesn't understand it or wants to modify it in a way so that their side wins all the debates. And that's not really helpful. And so we see this threat from the big countries, the big places. Other areas of threat that would be similar would be in the area of copyright, where draconian sort of over-enforcement of copyright could be incredibly damaging to ordinary people's sort of free and fair use of the internet. I always give this example, which is perfectly true today. If you have a kid's birthday party and you take a video of the kid's birthday party and there's music playing in the background and you upload that video to YouTube just to show grandma, whatever, say, oh, look on YouTube at this video. Chances are Google will automatically silence all the soundtrack. And the reason they're doing that is that they are trying to do the right thing around copyright issues, and they silence sort of music that you don't have permission to use. But I think most of us would say, that's not pirating music, right? That's taking a picture of my kid's birthday. Like, that's using music in the way that we've always used music. And it doesn't seem like the same thing as wholesale kind of piracy of music. It's just like, whatever. It's like, when I was a kid, we made mixtapes and gave them to our friends. Was that technically piracy? Probably, maybe, but it's kind of like the normal way that people use music. So when we have regulators who are pushed by lobbyists and so on to act in draconian ways to prevent openness, it can cause a lot of problems, and it's just not very smart. Then another big threat is regulation in countries who generally do not respect openness in the first place. So in the case of Wikipedia, we are currently, as of yesterday, we're currently only blocked in China. We've been blocked in China for many years. We've been open in China. We've been blocked in China, it's sort of as their mood changes over the years. One of our core principles is that we believe that access to knowledge is a fundamental human right. And so we've never acted to censor Wikipedia on the behalf of any government anywhere in the world, and we never will. So I must have that written somewhere here. But what we see is that direct censorship demands are on the rise. So we get notifications from various places. I can give you a couple of examples that are sort of more or less amusing. It's not that uncommon that this has happened in the past, that we've gotten a notification from the regulator in Russia saying, this page is illegal and Wikipedia will be blocked if you don't take it down. And then before we have time to do anything or even respond, 6 hours later they put out their second press release saying, Wikipedia has decided to comply and we're not going to block them. And we're like, okay, hope you're having fun over there. We have no idea what you're talking about. There's actually a fun trick, which is a little bit crazy, but in the Russian law, so for example, in Russia, it is illegal to have drug propaganda. So we have been threatened there's a page in Wikipedia, believe it or not, that says that people smoke marijuana. And we've been threatened over that page, but one of the loopholes in Russian law is it doesn't apply to any academic material. So what the Russian language community has done, which is fantastic, is any page on a potentially sort of difficult issue for the Russian government, they make it have 350 academic references, right? They just make it really, really fucking good. And we believe that actually, I mean, Russia's the whole thing with the war and all that, that's a whole other topic, right? But I would say, speaking longer term, we have not felt that the Russian government wants to block Wikipedia, but they want to sort of saber rattle from time to time. So it's very strange. So, but we find around the world, direct censorship demands are on the rise. But the biggest weapons that we have are integrity and popularity. So what do I mean by that? So integrity. Wikipedia has never given in demands that factual content be censored by any government anywhere in the world, and we never will. And so countries that practice censorship may find this surprising. Typically, what happens, I'll give Turkey as an example. Turkey threatened Twitter with a block. I think they did block them for a while. And what Twitter decided to do, this is pre-Elon Twitter, I have no idea whether they're going to suddenly become at least principled on freedom of expression. Kind of doubt it, but we'll see. What they did is they would take down certain tweets, but only in that country. So if you were in Turkey, you wouldn't be able to see the tweets of people criticizing the government. Well, we would never do that. But because most companies will do that, when they blocked Wikipedia, they thought we would crumble immediately and change the text of 4 pages that they were complaining about. And we're like, these pages, unfortunately for you, are very well sourced and factually true. So no, we're never going to do that. And they were like, well, you could just, change it or block those pages, like don't show those pages in Turkey. And we're like, it's a human right, so no. And in Turkey, thank goodness, we fought in the courts. We took it to the Supreme Court of Turkey. We were threatening to take it to the European Court of Human Rights because Turkey is a signatory to ECHR. And we won in the Supreme Court of Turkey in a landmark decision about blocking websites in Turkey. And I'm really proud of that. Like that we would now say there is a Supreme Court precedent in Turkey that they can't just block us because the president's office doesn't like a certain page. Like that's really, really important. And so we're proud about that. So we don't do that. And so what that means is for countries who do understand that, they sort of know there's a stark choice. So we use HTTPS, so every page in Wikipedia is encrypted. And I could also give a whole extra speech on the importance of encryption as a human right. But that means that countries cannot filter individual pages from Wikipedia. They have to either block all of Wikipedia or none of Wikipedia. When we switched to HTTPS, we didn't, in the early days we didn't. It used to be quite expensive to do. Eventually we made the whole site encrypted. And we thought, actually, we're probably going to get blocked in a lot of very conservative countries because they're going to suddenly, they were filtering out pages. So in certain Middle Eastern countries, they would filter out pages on homosexuality, for example. So suddenly they can't do that. So what would they do? Would they block all of Wikipedia? And basically 100% of them all decided it's just too valuable. Like we can't just block all of Wikipedia. So we're going to have to let this page through. And I think this is incredibly, again, from a human rights perspective, really important. So imagine if you're a teenager in Iran and you are having, you're learning about your own sexuality and you're thinking about things. Shouldn't you have a right? A fundamental human right to go and read the scientific information about human sexuality and so forth? I would say yes, and now that's happening because Wikipedia is just too like we won't just sort of filter certain pages because it's demanded. But then the other tool is popularity. So Wikipedia is extremely popular. I went through that earlier. But it's not only popular in the sense of being heavily used. Like lots of sites are really heavily used and they're popular. And they get blocked anyway, and people complain about it, but whatever. But it's also popular in the sense of being beloved and respected. Like if you say, we've blocked this because there was radical content, maybe it's Twitter or whatever, people go, yeah, there probably is some radical content on Twitter. There's a lot of assholes on Twitter. But if you block Wikipedia, people who use Wikipedia, they're like, it doesn't seem like that's a terrorist website. You can't really get away with that because we love Wikipedia, and the more they know about us, And then we've also been willing to black out our pages in protest. We did this in the US against a really ridiculous copyright bill, SOPA PIPA. We've done it in other countries whenever it was necessary. And it works. It works really well. Like if Wikipedia blacks out and says, hey, everybody pay attention, you need to contact your legislator because something is about to happen that's going to really damage Wikipedia. I mean, the US House of Representatives phone system crashed that day. Like it was a huge deal. And they immediately backed down. And we thought that was really important. Actually, one of my favorite quotes of all time came just after that when the head of the MPAA, was it MPAA? Yeah, MPAA said, he blurted out, I mean, he said the quiet part out loud is what I would say. He said to all the congressmen who backed down, he's like, I gave you all this money and you're supposed to be there for me and here you are and you're not. And I'm like, and then he said about Wikipedia, this is an abuse of power. And I'm like, actually, donating money to politicians and expecting them to do what you say, that's an abuse of power. Rallying the public in a democracy to call the representatives, that's democracy. So because we've been willing to do that, we hope that causes a little bit of a pause. We don't want to do that too often because, boy who cried wolf, we can't go crazy about every little sort of bad, small adjustment to regulation that's out there. But increasingly, we have decided, we've taken this decision 4 or 5 years ago, and it takes a long time to build up, but we're building our sort of public policy infrastructure. So we've got more people now in more countries who are able to actually engage. We've got local chapters all around the world. We've got an increasing size of our public policy team because we realize actually we don't want to be in a position where we have to black out the site because nobody talked to us, right? We want a seat at the table. We want to be able to talk to the regulators beforehand, but also to let them know, like, really, we are pretty inflexible. So if you think this is a negotiation, that's probably not right because we're not going to agree to censor Wikipedia to suit you. On the other hand, we can probably help you think about the real problems and things. So in the UK, for example, there's all this hubbub about the online safety bill. You know what? The safety of children online is incredibly important. Like, that's a serious topic. So we don't want to be obstructionist just to be obstructionist. What we do want to say is, actually, stuff you're proposing that isn't going to help, don't do that stuff. Like, that's actually harmful. So as an example, it just keeps bubbling up over and over and over again in this country of encryption, breaking into an encryption. This is an incredibly bad idea from any online safety perspective, but it just keeps coming up over and over again, and so we just have to explain over and over again, like, actually, encryption is really important, and you wouldn't want to break it. So the bigger issue here is not Wikipedia per se. I would say that due to our size and power, we're likely to find a way to endure. And this is actually true, interestingly, of a lot of other players in this. I worry more about the principles of the open internet for the future, for all the startups, all the small organizations, all of the different people who might have all kinds of new ideas. Just to give one example, if social media is regulated on the assumption that it's all exactly like Facebook and Twitter, then you will impose on upstart competitors rules that force them into that same feudal model. You have all these responsibilities and things you have to do, and there's no way to do that and also let your community kind of make decisions and so forth. And so that's part of the issue is, we're big enough to probably survive, but we have to fight for the ecosystem and the things that we believe in. And if we look to history, large companies often do not mind regulation just so long as the regulation puts up barriers to entry against newcomers. So we have seen statements from Mark Zuckerberg that they would welcome some regulation of social media. Well, of course they would. Just as long as any new upcomer can't comply with it or it's too expensive, they can afford it. Their profits will be a little lower. They'll just have to hire a bunch more staff. They'll have to, it's very common to sort of propose, oh, they could use AI to do this. It's like, yeah, but what about that 3-person startup who's just getting started with a clever idea about a genuine community model? What about, I give one example that I love to talk about is there's a fantastic, I think it's called onering.net, but it's basically a Lord of the Rings message board. Lovely community. It's a small hobby website. It's, they post memes, they chat all the time. And they were really worried about the European copyright directive because a lot of what gets posted on the site is memes and sort of images from the movies and so on. And they're like, well, as far as we can tell, we're going to be held responsible in Europe for vast penalties and fines up to, whatever. And we don't know how to deal with it. And, one of the things that was said is, you know what? They could close down their website and move and become a Facebook group. Their community could do that. For me, this is a sad outcome. You don't want to have all the small players have to pull out and say, I can't afford this kind of regulation, therefore I'm just going to have to sort of run my site on Facebook. That's a really bad outcome for everybody, except maybe Facebook. That's it for me. Thank you. So there's no clock. So I don't know if I'm over time or under time or... Wait, am I over time? Am I under time?
Yeah, about right.
I'm about right? Okay,
about right.
Great. I'm going to be back on stage later.
I'm just going to tell them that.
Okay,
Brilliant.
she's going to tell you that.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Bye.
So, back in the day, I'm very, very old, and back in the day, in the late 90s, early noughties, I don't know what anybody knows about me. I used to be a lawyer, and I was an internet lawyer in a .com in 99, 2000. And I was one of the people lobbying the UK government and the EU around what became the Distance Selling Directive and E-commerce Directive. And the internet was pretty small then. Social media didn't really exist. And I worked for something called FreeServe, and we were trying to manage things like news groups and chat rooms and stuff back then. And the feudal model that Jimmy's just talked about was the only option, because we couldn't manage content, even when it was that small. So I just want to reiterate and support everything that he's just said about how the internet moves forward. Again, Jimmy Wales. So as Jimmy said, he will be with Emma Thwaites, who's the communications director from the Open Data Institute. The Open Data Institute has really kindly hosted and curated the whole of the content on for Open Data. He'll be on at 1 o'clock. If data isn't your bag and you've learned everything you wanted to know this morning from Jimmy, the Entrepreneurship Room has a session on, for the open source community, the Holy Grail, how you make revenue out of open source software, which is in the room next door. The security room has a cast to die for if you're in security on the ground floor. This room will become platform engineering with Liz Rice, who everybody's in awe of. But Liz has created an incredible set of content, just amazing. What else have we got? Second floor, Unconference. If you want to go and do something different and you don't want to follow structure, that's the place for you. Sustain OSS is also on that floor. And just a reminder, you have to use Lift B to go to the Sustain OSS conference. We also have open hardware on the second floor. Floors 1, 3, and 4, 58 tables, a dozen DX experiences, delegate experiences for you to go and interact with. Lunch at 12, coffee break at 3. Please use the festival tents on the lawn to relax in. Fourth floor, bunch of workspaces if you need somewhere to go and work. There's a quiet corridor and a neurodiversity room. Bunch of amenities for you. I hope you'll enjoy the second day as much as everybody's told me they've enjoyed the first. If there are any issues, though, also tell me, and anything you think we can improve on, also tell me, because we've got a bit of work to do. Somebody last night wasn't happy online about the lack of transcripts, and I agree with them. And I hadn't thought about getting an interpreter, and I should have, so that's my bad. But the transcript was just above budget this year. We'll try and do that for next year. Oh, next year. So tickets will not be on sale for a little while. We've got a few things to do, like have a holiday. We won't be organising it in 10 weeks. We'll be organising it in something like 49 weeks. The CFP process will be calm and it will be slow, and you will all have a chance to put content in. But if you would like to speak before then, we host, and we've just started to host meetups in London at Avanad's offices. I'm really grateful to Avanad's for sponsoring Beer Pizza and the office space. The next one is on the 21st of March, and you'll get that on the openuk.uk website. On the 15th of September, we are going to be in Edinburgh at Dynamic Earth, and we will be having the second Open Technology for Sustainability Day, sponsored by Intel. That's a free-to-attend event that will focus on the COP26 progress that we've made. You may have seen our EV charging blueprint, as well as the data center blueprint that we've done using open source software, hardware, data to reduce carbon emissions. The Open Charge Alliance, who we're great friends with, are actually on the 4th floor, so go and speak to Lonica and the team up there. I've mentioned next year. I will get you a date for next year as soon as I can. If anybody would like to give me money, I'm really always happy to take that from you, and we're going to need some of it. If you want to engage more with Open UK, everybody is welcome. You don't have to give me money to do that. And we will be looking at setting up an AI policy group. We already have different groups around security. If you want to propose a group, this is your organisation. So just let us know. admin@openuk.uk is federated amongst a whole group of people, so we can always pick things up there, you know, irrespective of people being out. You can get hold of us on Twitter, Mastodon. We've not been so good at Mastodon yet. We're still working that out, but we're trying to do Mastodon. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn. And please, engage with us, get involved. We have an event on International Women's Day, and it's up BT Tower, which is a lifelong ambition of mine. I did actually get to go up already to have a look at it, but they're going to actually spin it round. And it's restricted to 80 people. We've invited particularly young women and women engineers already, so we have quite a lot of the audience full. But I'd like to offer 8 tickets to people at the conference. So if you drop a note to admin@openuk.uk explaining why you should be one of the 8 people we give the tickets to, what your contribution to the community is, it's a champagne afternoon tea up BT Tower in good company. And there'll be an archivist to explain how it works, but they pull the plugs in the centre and it rotates. I mean, can you believe it? It's just so exciting. So if anybody else wants to come up BT Tower with me on, I think it's the 6th of March, you can. Well, 8 of you can. I'm watching Matt Jarvis smiling. Am I missing anything? What else are we doing? We're doing so much. Just take a look at the website, openuk.uk. Please get involved. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the content. It'll be about 2 weeks before we have the full content online for free download. Let me know good things, bad things, what you want to see next year. This conference is about all of you, and help us shape it for next year. And enjoy your day. Thank you.